2025, are you ready to rock? Dave's Killer Bread is ready to rock 2025 and your reset this January with killer taste, killer nutrition, and a killer sweepstakes to win a VIP concert prize pack with round-trip airfare, luxury hotel stay, and much more. Text RESET to 73876 and enter for a chance to win. Dave's Killer Bread. Bread amplified. No purchase necessary. Visit daveskillerbread.com/reset for details.
Hey guys, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. So, the first 15 minutes of the show we had some tech difficulties, and by 15 minutes I mean 45 minutes. We just got back from the trip. Sacco had been drinking the entire trip. He didn't set anything up right, and of course, in typical Sacco fashion, he was late tonight, which is why he ends up in the cage. So you're going to join the show about 45 minutes in when we finally get it figured out. My good friend Dan Butcher, the editor-in-chief, Pundit Press, joins me and hosts the Sackheads Radio Show from July 15th, 2015. Now enjoy.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. But for those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack Dude. Sack Dude.
Radio.
Sack Dude. Sack Dude.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America. And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Now, let's talk Iran for a minute.
Well, you know what, Sean? Let me do this while you're fiddling around and messing with sound stuff. Let me kind of break down this deal for everybody, okay?
Please,
because
please.
I have heard. You know, I keep hearing everybody doing shows criticizing the deal about how bad it is, and I hear Obama up on praising the deal, going after Major Garrett today because he dared to ask a tough question of Obama. But nobody is actually breaking down this deal in simple terms so that people can understand how bad it really is, and what the U.S. got and what Iran got. So I'm going to break that down real quick while you're messing with the sounds. And this is cutting through all the yes. Now, this is what we got in this deal, supposedly. And now it's written on paper, and I have the actual nuclear deal posted on Pundit Press. You can go through all 100 plus pages of it if you want to, but I think I've broke it down into simple terms for you here tonight. Basically, here's what the United States got. Iran reduces by half the number of centrifuges actively enriching uranium. Iran reduces its stockpile of enriched uranium from about 5 tons to 300 kilograms. Iran repurposes its heavy water reactor at Arak so it does not produce plutonium. That's a bunch of BS. An unspecified increase in inspections by the IAEA, which if you've read Pundit Press yesterday and today, you will know that, of course, Barack Obama lied yesterday when he said that the United States, all of the inspectors would have 24/7 access to Iran's nuclear facilities. That is not true. That is not the case. Now, here is what Iran gets, if you can hear me through all the static currently going in my headset. Iran gets sanctions relief, first of all. And with that sanctions relief, almost every type of U.S., EU, and UN sanctions are lifted. Also, repeal of 6 UN Security Council resolutions declaring the Iranian nuclear program illegal. Top IRGC and Quds Force terrorists removed from the sanctions list, including Qasem Soleimani, leader of Iran's campaign against U.S. soldiers in Iraq, and Ahmad Vahidi, mastermind of the 1994 Jewish Community Center bombing in Argentina that killed 85 people. The removal of sanctions list of approximately 800 people and legal entities, including 23 out of 24 Iranian banks, 100 to 150 billion to be unfrozen and given to Iran with no restrictions on its use to purchase arms and fund terrorism, including funding of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Assad regime in Syria. Now, here is what happens. This is what Iran gets in regards to its nuclear program. They get to keep every one of their nuclear centrifuges. Iran keeps its entire physical nuclear infrastructure, including the enrichment facilities at Fordo and Natanz and the nuclear reactor at Bushehr. Iran is permitted to continue research and development on all of its advanced centrifuge designs, reducing nuclear breakout time at the end of the deal to weeks. Iran permitted to transition its allowed enrichment of uranium from older centrifuge designs to advanced designs. No anywhere, anytime inspections. Iran can delay inspection of any site for at least 24 days. No requirement that Iran fully disclose past nuclear weapons research and development. The P5+1 Western powers pledged to collaborate with Iran on nuclear technology. The P5+1 nations will also train Iran on how to protect its nuclear facilities from attacks. That means we're going to be teaching Iran how to protect its facilities from attack from Israel, the Saudis, you name it. Restrictions on enrichment, part of the sunset of the deal, are lifted after 8 years. If Iran is thought to have violated the deal in order to snap back sanctions, a dispute resolution process must be undertaken that can last 2.5 months, after which the matter can be referred to the UN Security Council. At the UNSC, the reimposition of sanctions can be vetoed by Russia. What are the chances of that happening?
Hear that? That's the beginning of a journey powered by the confidence that comes from driving a vehicle so reliable, it's backed by a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. Where your journey ends? Well, that's up to you. Visit your local Kia dealer today. Kia, movement that inspires.
See retailer for warranty details. Always drive safely. Limited inventory available.
Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/getstarted for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
Very likely, which stands to earn billions of dollars from arms sales to a non-sanctioned Iran. Now, here is what Iran gets in regards to concessions unrelated to the nuclear program. Ballistic missile embargo, the ballistic missile embargo is lifted. Conventional arms embargo is lifted after 5 years. Iran gets to keep, guess who? The 4 U.S. hostages. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is not making your blood boil, I don't know what does. Because Obama's arguments just distract from the one thing that is now a certainty, and that he has allowed a change in the dynamic and balance of forces that had existed and that had helped maintain the larger peace since the breakup of the Ottoman Empire after the First World War. You have to remember there's been a millennial divisions between Persians and Arabs, and that these are very much aggravated by a deep religious divide. The prospect that the region will now go nuclear is very dangerous. I made this comment on Facebook yesterday that President Obama has lit the fuse on a nuclear arms race in the Middle East that began yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a matter of time before Benjamin Netanyahu, the Saudis, and various other Middle East nations start lighting the fires and kicking the tires and lighting the fires to deal with Iran's nuclear program. one other thing. With the lifting of the conventional arms embargo, Obama is also allowing the ongoing wars to escalate, and he is further allowing that escalation to accumulate with nuclear weapons, if not now, then in a few short years. Sean, I'm out of breath, my friend. I hope you got your mics working. Okay, if you folks can still hear me in the chat room, please say so. I think I've lost Sean. Yes, Ken, I am tap dancing. Okay, Joe says that he can still hear me. Oh, boy. So, you're listening to the Sackheads Radio Show on SHR Media, Pundit Press, and wherever else out in the hemisphere, the atmosphere, the internet, wherever this show is going tonight. We are... Oh, this is a complete and utter cluster tonight. So hopefully Sean will be back with us. In the meantime, I am going to just stay on the air and ramble and ramble. And you know what? I'm going to start reading some of the, Sean, your thoughts on Obama's remarks on Bill Cosby. They were a distraction. I think that was a distraction question. Let's face it, Obama uses this type of nonsense to distract from. Why has he not mentioned, Obama not talked about the young lady that was killed in San Francisco? Hey, Sean, I think you're back, man. Can you hear me? Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. And Sean is gone again. And Joe wants to know my thought on Major asking the real question. Here's my thought on that.
Did I lose everything?
Wait a minute. Hey, Sean, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, I'm here. Here's the best part. I don't know where here is right now.
Wait a minute. Are you back now?
I'm back now. Did you? Oh, I see. Hold on. Wait.
Oh, wait a minute.
Was it that?
He has it figured out.
Can you hear me?
He cut himself off again.
Can you hear me now?
Barely. Sean, keep working on the mics, buddy, because you're coming in real bad, too loud, real staticky, the whole 9 yards.
How about that?
I'm going to answer Joe's question real quick about Major taking on President Obama today. Major Garrett he's been one of the few that there's been a few others, from of the press corps that are not afraid to ask some tough questions. But Major Garrett has been, and mainly the ones that have asked tough questions have asked it of the press secretary. They've not directly confronted President Obama himself. So for Major Garrett to step up and do that was really refreshing and really brave for him to do so. And he asked a very tough question about President Obama and the 4 hostages remaining in Iran. And quite honestly, President Obama was very upset about that. He does not like the tough questions. He does not like to be questioned that way. He likes to be able to give his soundbite answers, his prepared remarks. And I fully expect that Major Garrett went off the prepared script, because it's very well known in this administration that they solicit the questions during the daily press briefings beforehand, and I'm sure, and they also do that before President Obama's press conferences. So I am pretty sure that this was a question that President Obama was not prepared for. He knew he was going to call on Major Garrett, but that was not the question that he was given that Major was going to ask, and it was great to do that. My personal thoughts on it is it will not surprise me one bit if CBS gets a call from the White House and Major Garrett is no longer a member of the press corps on Thursday or on Friday. And in all honesty, Major
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.
Hardy Fiber Cement Siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy Siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
Garrett may be without a job come Thursday or Friday for having the guts to stand up and ask a tough question to President Obama. This is a president that thinks a lot of himself. He's a narcissist. He thinks that he's God's gift to everything, does not like to be challenged. And when this happens, he does give a lot of political payback, a lot of personal payback. You certainly see what is happening with some of the other people that have dared to challenge President Obama. Sean, are you back?
I am. I'm actually doing it. Oh, really? Now I'm getting the echo. Is that better? No.
All right, man. You're back. Let's just...
Yeah, that's fine. As long as... Can you hear the echo?
No, I can hear a little static, but that's it.
Okay, I can deal with my own echo.
And Joe is asking, did we lose Dan?
No, Dan's there. I can see Dan. Dan can see me. Everything's hunky-dory. Or as hunky-dory as it could possibly.
Oh, this is one of these crazy nights, my friend. Okay, so Dave is saying no Sean, but we hear Dan now. and it keeps going. It keeps going back and forth. I want to come back to Major Garrett for just a minute, and he actually addressed the reason that he challenged President Obama today. And this is what he said. Major Garrett said, sometimes you have to take a scolding from a president to get an answer. That's part of my job. Politicians, especially those elected as president, are very adept at creating straw men, taking something that they feel rhetorically works to their advantage and using it. That's exactly what the president did. My question did not suggest he was content with the captivity of those 4 Americans. My question was about the contentment or the satisfaction or the realization that it was necessary within the context of this deal to leave them unaccounted for. That was the essence of the question. Clearly, it struck a nerve. That was my intention. Was it provocative? Yes. Was it intended to be as such? Absolutely. So Major Garrett is not backing down. And I will tell everybody about this with Major Garrett. Major Garrett started out, as a newspaper reporter, and back in the mid-'80s, he worked for the Amarillo Globe News, where I started out my newspaper career as well. And so I can speak a little bit about Major. He is, as far as journalists go, he is definitely one of the ones that is one of the most honest, most respected. What you see is what you get from him. And so it's not very surprising that he did go after the president in such a way as this. I just wish that more of the White House press corps and more of the reporters would do the same. Okay, Sean?
Hey, Dan, you can hear me?
Hey, you sound a lot better. Don't touch a thing.
You know why? Because I'm on my phone.
You have gone to the backup system, man. Perfect. Sounds good.
I have thousands of dollars of equipment in front of me, and none of it works. And I don't know why. That's the amazing part. So, anyhow, I know you already went over it. I have the clip from when Major Garrett was sparring with the president. But, you know, the whole thing that gets me the most is how condescending the president was.
Yes.
And this is, you know, we've seen this before with other people who dared question his authority. And I don't know why this becomes such a big issue with him. Somebody's gonna question you. That's the way it works. You're the president. You've just made a major decision, albeit good or bad, for the nation. And in this case, it's very, very bad. However, either way, it is their job to question you on this. It is their job to get an answer. It is their job to dig deeper. And if this president didn't think that anybody was ever going to dare question him over whether or not the 4 hostages or prisoners, however you want to call them in Iran, played into this, he is out of his mind.
Well, and you see this, you know, you do see this on both sides of the aisle. You see it on the right, but really you see it even amplified and on steroids with our friends on the left. And I use Hillary Clinton's recent roping of the reporters during the 4th of July parade event, where they literally roped off the reporters and led them down, you know, the street by a rope. Now, you have to remember, that's not the first time the Clintons ever did that. They took that, you know, Hillary is very big, and the Clintons literally are very big from taking things from their political playbook. In 94, when Bill Clinton was running for president, during a campaign event in Arkansas, they used this same tactic. He was at a campaign event, walking down the street, meeting and greeting people, and they had the reporters roped off, leading them down the street, just like Hillary did. But with this president, it's, you know, he doesn't just do this with the press. There's a famous video, you know, there's several videos floating around on YouTube where constituents, where voters have actually challenged the president, and you see how angry and how condescending he gets with them, talking down to them. I'm bigger than you. I'm the president. He forgets that he works for us. He really does.
No, it's horrible. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. He absolutely handles himself like some sort of bizarre dictator that I will never be able to understand. You know, every other president, at least one time or another, gets into a little trouble, right? We've seen that time and again. We will see that over and over again in the days. But this president didn't just get himself in a little sparring match with somebody who doesn't. He gets into that sparring match, and then, in an act of defiance, he turns to insult. And all of his press secretaries have done this, and he does this. Major, you know better than that. No. You just made Major Garrett, you just pointed to him like he was stupid in front of the entire world. He does know better than that. He knows you need to answer an important question, and that's why he had it. But no, it's mudslinging. Why is it mudslinging? Because he had no proper answer, which is why it took him 4.5 minutes to finally say something intelligent.
Well, and here's the thing, and I'm going to bring this back to the nuclear deal, okay? President Obama, John Kerry, the rest of the administration, they do not realize that, you know, President Obama's Middle East legacy is going to be the fact that he was played for an absolute fool by the Iranians. You know, I want to, if this agreement was so great as Obama said it was, why didn't he say in his speech on Tuesday morning that he would embark on a campaign to show the people why it's good? But instead, he immediately raised what? The veto warning. If Congress, he said he would veto any legislation from Republicans, Democrats, didn't matter who. He would veto it if it had anything to do with doing away or canceling this nuclear agreement with Iran. And once again, people have to realize that Iran got far more than in this nuclear in this nuclear deal that favors them. You know, these negotiations were supposed to be strictly about nuclear weapons, yet at the last minute, the Iranians brought up conventional weapons, and the Obama administration turned over the whole kitchen to them. They can now buy anything they want. Also, the lifting of sanctions was supposed to cover just the nuclear area, yet the Iranians insisted so much, again at the last minute, that all sanctions are being lifted, including those on the Quds forces of the Revolutionary Guards. And, you know, the ones that concoct terrorist acts throughout the world are fighting on Assad's side, and they're providing missiles to Hezbollah and Hamas for use against Iran. Let's face it, the Iranians were very, very clever negotiators. They kept they kept giving Obama a taste of very near victory, meaning a deal, any deal. And then at the last minute, when Kerry and Obama were exhausted and hungry for any deal, they sprung the conventional weapons and sanctions trap, and Obama and Kerry did it, you know, and we you know, with this deal, we're pretty much where we started. Iran's going to continue its nuclear quest, and Obama was true to form. He got a deal, any deal, just not the one that would have stopped Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Obama, John Kerry, the whole administration looked like amateurs negotiating against pros. And if that weren't bad enough, Obama chose to tie his hands behind his back to boot, and with any type of military enforcement being off the table.
Yes, and no inspections of the military facilities on the other side. Amazing to me. So the IAEA cannot go into the military facilities that will most likely house at least the delivery systems, but there's no military action on the table. And I said this today, Dan, on my show. Here's the end game. And, you know what, part of me hopes that this is the plan, even as scummy and political as it might be. He knows he needs to do a plan, cut a deal, in order to look good. He doesn't care who he cuts a deal with. Look at the red line in Syria. He will cut a deal with the devil in order to be able to go to his legacy. And everyone gets say I'm crazy. I always think he's campaigning for his next stop, which is the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Bingo.
I always say that. So you cut this deal to look like the good guy. Look at me, United Nations. I brought peace to the region. I'm going to change things. Blah, 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 blah. Knowing, when I said this on my show today on Edge of Liberty, knowing that Israel will never, ever allow those facilities to get up and running. They will not allow them to get to the point that they will have a sophisticated enough delivery system and enough uranium to put on the tip of an ICBM. They will destroy it, and I bet dollars to donuts that the administration is counting on that.
Well, you know what, Sean? Let's face it. Obama and Kerry could not even negotiate the release of 4 American hostages the Iranians are holding, quote, as a sign of good faith. Now, today, there's a new Middle East, and it's one where there's a nuclear arms race underway. For people that don't realize, for nearly 100 years, the West helped keep the area relatively peaceful. First with the British and French help, and then after World War II with the United States. Barack Obama has changed all of that. We've been watching revolutions and more recently wars in many places, and that's just the beginning. With nuclear powers in the region, the real show will soon begin. There is nothing more dangerous in the world today than a nuclear-armed Iran, which is the largest funder of terrorism across the globe, the largest supplier of weapons to terrorists across the globe. Thank you very much, Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, how many times in our life are we going to say that sarcastically? That's what I want to know, Dan. How many times before we die will we say thank you, Barack Hussein Obama, without it being serious? You know, just once, I want to be able to say it with a serious tone in my voice. Like, hey, right. You know what? You lowered taxes. Thanks, Barack Hussein Obama. For everything right now, he's just like you said it, and there's a reason. He continues to make us look weak and expect everybody else to bail him out. And even when he doesn't think that there's a bailout needed, and I've said this time and again, he's not a stupid man. He is not a stupid man. I know, and even our chat room will say, oh, you know, he's a moron, but he's not a moron. He is a very, very intelligent man with an agenda. And that's even more dangerous than incompetence and stupidity.
Well, Mrs. Butcher and I were actually having this argument over dinner last night. And if anybody's ever listened when Jane's on the radio with me, we don't always agree with our discussions, and it makes wonderful conversations. And I'm hoping she'll come wandering in the room here in a minute because she might add to some of this. But one of the points that I brought up is that in Barack Obama's mind, in Hillary Clinton's mind, in Bernie Sanders' mind, in the progressive mindset, they truly, truly believe that this nuclear deal with Iran is the way to go. They truly see this as the way to peace in the Middle East, and that is not the case. It's just like with their economic reforms, with Obamanomics, with man-made global warming. You have to remember that all of these things are theories. A lot of people, you constantly hear, Barack Obama and our progressive friends argue that the science is settled as far as man-made global warming. It's not settled science. It's not proven science. It is nothing but a theory that has not been proved by science, and that goes to the economic policies. This goes to the economic policies of President Obama. All these academics he has in his administration, they do these on all unproven theories, and that is what his foreign policy is based on. Unproven theories. And when you see this stuff put into the real world, you have to remember that, President Obama, they still claim that a lot of their very, very massive failures that they've had fighting terrorism, in dealing with ISIS, they still claim Yemen as a model of success for President Obama fighting terrorism across the globe. But when you put all of these things all of these theories into the real world, whether it be man-made global warming, whether it be progressive economics, you have seen that complete and total failure with raising the minimum wage to $15 in Seattle and now Los Angeles, the disastrous results there, what progressive policies in real world, being exposed to the real world have done to Detroit, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., whether it's social justice, wealth redistribution, you name it. And now you're seeing the total failure of their foreign policy theories dealing with Iran, dealing with Russia, dealing with South Korea, dealing with Cuba, you name it, the complete and total failure of this being exposed to the real world. Sean, it's making the world became a much dangerous place to be yesterday with this nuclear deal.
Well, and it's like everything else. This guy does not do anything with the best interest of the United States. Ever. He's on this world's government mindset. Everything he does is calculated to appease a world government mindset. That's something that drives me insane, right? That is something that, under shadow of a doubt, makes me more angry than anything else. Marco.
Hey, guess what? We can hear Sacco saying, check mic one, check mic one, check mic one. Good evening, Sacco. Sacco is in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
And not a moment too soon. But, we go back, by the way, you brought up global warming not too long ago. And I do want to discuss the fact that we're about to go into a mini ice age. That's important. We talk about unproven science, and that's right up there. And they're going we're going to have a solar flare. But when we talk about all these sciences that are unproven, I'm going to get off my rant for a quick second. We talk about these sciences that are unproven, Dan. The first thing that I always bring up are eggs. When I talk about science, I always bring up eggs to people. And people always say, what do you mean eggs? You remember, and you may have heard this before from me, you remember when eggs were completely good for you, every single one, no matter what. You
Right.
remember that? And then do you remember when eggs were bad again? All of a sudden, eggs turned bad. Nobody was allowed to eat eggs because the yellow portion would kill you. And then it turned into the white part was okay, but the yellow part was bad. How long have eggs been around?
Since the beginning of time.
How long have we had science studying eggs? 200 years, right?
Well, you could even say that we've had science. You could even say that we had Neanderthals studying eggs, throwing them and saying, "Hey, this is cool. This makes great cave artwork." Different things like that. But I always tell everybody when it comes back to global warming, and we'll use this for an example, is always follow the money. Global warming, just like race baiting, is a billion-dollar industry. Al Gore, he was a wealthy man. He was a millionaire when he went into the White House, and then when he left the White House, he was still a moderate millionaire. And now you're talking about a man that's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million due to all of the money that he's made off of the global warming, race baiting. And when it comes to global warming, and you'll see you and I have discussed this very often, that the policies of Barack Obama are lock and step with the UN, because I have put this theory out there, even though we've had an unwritten rule for so long since the beginning of the United Nations that permanent members of the Security Council, that those countries, none of their members would serve as the Secretary General. But since when did rules matter to Barack Obama when he really wants something? And Barack Obama is absolutely loved by the United Nations. He is exactly what they would love to see in a Secretary General. They would love to have a Secretary General from the United States because they believe it would help them with their agenda, such as wealth redistribution, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when it's all said and done, that is all man-made global warming is about. It is about wealth redistribution from the wealthier nations to the poorer nations. Bottom line, end of discussion, that's what it is about. And then you've had people like Al Gore seize on to this that have been able to make a very, very generous living off of this. And hopefully with this coming ice age, we will be able to bankrupt the likes of Al Gore and stop some of this nonsense being perpetrated, the fraud that is the United Nations. I think the United Nations, you know what? Why didn't we, as part of this nuclear deal, offer to put the United Nations in downtown Tehran? That is a part of this nuclear agreement I could have lived with, Sean.
Yeah, I would actually, yeah, I could have. Here's what I could have lived with, actually, in this agreement, and completely honest. Iran gets nothing until they stop threatening to kill Israel, threatening to kill us, and have 5 solid years of acting like mature and intelligent country. And when they can do that, and they can prove that to us, then I will start talking to them about solar panels. And if they need extra power, they can start with solar panels. And then after solar panels, I'll give them coal, and so on and so forth. And maybe by the time I am long dead, they can absolutely have nuclear power. It's not really that hard. It's not
science. It's not anything crazy.
A lot of people don't know that back in the 1950s, under the Eisenhower administration, especially when the Shah had come into power, that the United States was actually very much in favor of countries in the Middle East having nuclear power, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, etc. But at that time, these countries were actually, people don't realize that the Middle East during the 50s, early 60s, mid 60s were the most modern nations in the world.
Look at what has happened to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was a very modern nation, but these radical Islamists have driven them back to the Stone Age, and you're seeing that happen in Iraq, and you're going to see the same thing happen in Iran as long as the mullahs are still in control, and they're going to get in bed with ISIS eventually, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be fooled by that. Iran and ISIS will start working together at some point. Iran is actually, their formal name is the Islamic State of Iran, and it is that for a reason. And so, Sean, I would make the argument that I would never allow the likes of Iran to obtain any form of nuclear power, for weapons, for power, anything. Because the bottom line is their entire history is filled with nothing but terrorism, and for the foreseeable future and the far future, it is filled with nothing but terrorism.
And Dan, you can hear me now, right? Do I sound much better?
Well, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. You know, it's one of those things, Dan. It's so nice to actually have a microphone in front of me. I don't feel like a weirdo. You know, it's one of those things.
We lost you, Sean.
Oh no! Hey, is my mic live?
Hopefully, we'll
get
Sean back on here.
Sacco, do you have the mic live?
Once again, you're listening to the Sackheads Radio Show on the SHR Media Network, on Pundit Press, on wherever we're broadcasting tonight. God knows where with what is happening tonight with tonight's show.
What's the Live 365 setup?
We're kind of. Hey, wait a minute. Here we go. We're
there
having
we go.
A lot of fun.
Am I there?
Sound check. You might have him adjust you. You're still kind of staticky.
Still a little staticky, I'm getting. Okay. But at least I'm here, right? Like, I'm in the room.
You are
I'm not
here, but it's getting much better.
I'm not off the reservation on a different planet like I was an hour ago.
I agree with Dave. You're kind of overdriving your mic a little bit.
Okay, how's that?
There you go, right. Sean. Don't touch it. Leave it right there for right now.
Wow. I actually feel like...
I'm just going to say we went... what happened was...
Now, Sacco, just for your defense, I want you to know that during Freedom Fest, I actually started a hashtag to give Sacco a big raise. And so, and I mentioned at the beginning of the show that maybe you were holding out tonight. You know, today was the deadline for signing NFL players. You know, Des Bryant signed a big multi-year $75 million contract. So, you know, maybe you were holding out a little bit, and maybe now you have some negotiating power, Sacco.
I have some playing power for sure.
Oh, man, Danny, this is just absolutely... Oh, good. I'm getting welcome to my own show in the chat room. This is so lovely. I really feel...
welcome, Sean.
I really feel the love right now. I really feel the love. Dan, why don't we do this? Can we take a quick break? Sacco, do we have the commercial queued at least? We do? No. Yes. No, we don't have the commercial queued. I can't even take a break. What is going on tonight?
Well,
Sean,
this let's do this real quick. We've got a lot of great things happening. Just to kind of whet everybody's appetite a little bit, we have a lot of great things that are fixing to happen on SHR Media. You're fixing to see some new shows come to SHR on the network. Like I said, one of them debuted today, Rogue Nation.
Yes.
Which he did an absolutely great job, considering he was still, kind of filling out the equipment and everything. There's some other shows that'll be debuting next week. We can't really give you the details on that yet, but we'll certainly let you know when they're available. So some exciting things are happening, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I'm also so happy, and I know he's in the chat room. Jersey Joe's going to be returning to the air. I believe we're looking at the 29th of July, and if you haven't heard Joe's shows, Joe's a lot of fun. He has a really, really good show. He's got that thick Jersey accent that makes it constantly sounds like he's trying to sell you insurance for your business, or the window may break if you don't buy it. However, he is extremely intelligent and has a really, really good show, so I'm very, very excited about that. And of course, we will have specials by you on Sunday nights. And I'm really psyched. That was, by the way, that roundtable we did a couple weeks ago was so much fun. I can't wait to actually do it again because for once, all I have to do is talk occasionally, which somehow is actually really good for me. It gives me a chance to think a little bit. But
well,
I am.
Yeah, tonight I'm just kind of unwinding a little bit. It's been a while since I've actually been on the show, or been on the radio, so I've got to unwind. You know what, and Sean, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know one of the other new shows that's coming on, because it is a done deal. And you and I, this was something that just kind of fell in our lap today. People might be familiar with Bill Martinez. Bill Martinez
Yes.
Live. Bill Martinez is probably... he's definitely one of the leading Hispanic conservative voices in the country today. His show is nationally syndicated in 250 markets across the country. His show is
251.
a big-time show. 251 now. So his show is a very big-time show, and we're very pleased to, I've been speaking with Bill on and off throughout the day, working out the details. It looks like we're going to start broadcasting his show live on SHR Media on Monday, which it'll air from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very excited to have Bill Martinez joining SHR Media. This is something that just kind of fell into our lap today. Actually, his PR person contacted me today about Bill being a contributor to Pundit Press, and so I was more than happy to have Bill Martinez join Pundit Press as a writer. And then I just put the question out there, hey, what about today's show? And then things started going. I contacted Sean, said, Sean, you will not believe this. And so here we are. We're adding Bill Martinez to the lineup, Jersey Joe coming back. And
Well, Dan, in my defense, you screw with me all the time. So I never know... I never know if you're serious or not. So when you first called me and told me, I knew exactly who Bill is, and I was like, yeah, okay. And then you actually started getting into the real details, and I was like, oh, maybe Bill will join us. What
was funny was that what I'm normally, Sean and I are notorious for trying to mess each other up before we go on the air, whether I'm hosting Edge on Fridays or, so usually, 10, 15 minutes before airtime, I might mess with him, with some ludicrous breaking story out of the UK or something like that, which by the way, one time when I was messing with him about a story, and these are legitimate stories that run in the British media, was about an exclusive investigation they were doing on whether Yetis were real or not. And I'll be damned if he didn't start his show with that story. And so, anyway, I hit him today about 30 minutes before showtime with this. What was happening, and so I could understand why you were going, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, Butchers, I'm getting butchered again. That's exactly what I say when that happens now. I'm getting butchered again. Because it's absolutely amazing how I'm sitting here and I'm sitting in my studio during the day and I'm getting everything all set up and I'm going through all my stories and my details. If I have sound clips, I'm going through that, just sitting there getting comfy. And all of a sudden I'll get a bing on the phone and I know who it is. It's 8:25, 8:35. I know it's Butcher. And I know that there's a 75% chance that it's going to be jackassery, and a 25% chance that it's going to be breaking news and or news orientated. Either way, like you watch a train wreck and you watch a train derail and sail off, and it's almost like its own strange way of beauty. I have to look at my phone because I can't help myself knowing that it's probably going to be you screwing with me, but there's a chance you're going to get me a story to go live with before anyone else has it.
Well, in my defense, it's because you're always giving me a lot of grief on the air.
Hey, second best newsman in the business.
I'm a target of a lot of stuff, Sean's stuff on the air as well. So it all works out in the.
Well, and I I've told you in the past, Dan, that a lot of people yell at me because they think when I give you a hard time that it's absolutely serious, and they have no idea how much more fun that actually makes it for me. Because I'm not getting you. I know you know better, but I'm getting everybody else, and my little sick little brain absolutely enjoys every second of that. All right, now we're ready for a break. Dan, can you hang on the other side of the break?
Hey, you bet, man. We're having too much fun tonight with this train wreck.
We're going to be back here on the Sackheads Radio Show live, sort of, on the SHR Media Network. Stick around.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf in a stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we got to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show live from the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest host for the evening and actually the host for the first hour, and I just kind of showed up occasionally. As always, is the amazing Dan Butcher from Pundit Press. Dan.
Yeah,
oh, Dan. Oh, good. Oh, good. I was about to lose it.
Well, what's going on? I kind of, in case everybody doesn't know, what I'm doing right now. What I was doing during the break is I was actually setting up the overnight programming for SHR, so I kind of missed the key coming back in.
I don't know if anyone's heard this, but President George H.W. Bush is actually in stable condition in the hospital right now. He apparently fell and broke a bone in his neck, but he's expected to recover. And I just saw this just now. I don't know how old it is. It looks like it was probably in the last few hours. So thoughts and prayers to President George H.W. Bush and hopefully he gets better as time goes on. Hey, Dan, the other two big stories that we've been talking about, I know I talked about today and I've talked about ad nauseum, but, we had the big argument on the Hill between Trey Gowdy and Secretary Johnson at DHS. And the immigration thing is starting to trump up again. And I say trump up for a reason. I've actually been waiting all day to use that because I thought about it later on. You know, even Sacco's laughing at me on that one. You know, you have Trump in some polls actually pulling ahead as the front runner for his conversation about immigration. Dan, I've been meaning to ask you this because I've said my answer time and again. Is Trump a serious candidate?
No, and here's why.
Okay, good.
I think Donald Trump, I think he's going to be spending a lot of his own money in this race, and there's even a limit to what he's going to spend. He's not going to attract the big PAC money like Jeb Bush already has, like Scott Walker has, etc. But here is what I think, I think there are certain people in this race that are in this race for a specific reason. And I don't think Rick Perry is a serious presidential candidate, but I think he is in this race to help front the Republicans' economic message, to talk about securing the border security, job creation, stuff like that. I think Carly is in this race specifically for one reason and one reason only, and that is to be the attack dog against Hillary Clinton. You see her doing nothing but attacking Hillary Clinton, and so I think so that kind of takes the war on women narrative away from the Democrats with that aspect. I also think that, and then that brings in Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is in this race for the reason of talking about the real issues, and hopefully to bring, let's be honest, if some of the other candidates were to talk about these issues before they are the nominee, the press is going to just absolutely destroy them, no matter how correct it is, and they're going to protect Hillary Clinton and the other. Let's face it, even though Hillary is the anointed one and supposedly the front runner on the Democrat side, she is not a lock to win the nomination, and we certainly saw that in 2008. Yes. She was the heir apparent. It was her time to be the first female president. That is not. She's not a lock to get that nomination. But I think that Donald Trump is here in the early stages, to really bring to the forefront some of these hard issues that need to be discussed, and let some of the other candidates, get ready for the debates and what have you. And then they can start addressing some of this. I think it's been a very big mistake for some of the candidates to distance themselves from Donald Trump, because let's be honest, he is speaking the truth. Donald Trump is speaking exactly what I am thinking, what you are thinking, what Mary is thinking, what Dave is thinking, what Joe is thinking in the chat room. He's thinking what the American people are really saying, what Joe Arpaio is saying, but that others are afraid to speak out about. And it's refreshing to hear that. And he's talking about these issues, and he said from the start that is what he was going to do. He was going to bring these tough issues up, and he's going to talk about them. And he has paid a very dear price for that, for doing that financially.
Oh, yes.
With the way he's being cut off from certain monetary sources, and the way other businesses are, the way they're trying to go after him business-wise, etc., for doing nothing but speaking the truth. The truth. And so I'm hoping as we vet the 15, 16 candidates, it really, there's 15, 16 candidates. There's really only 5 that are serious candidates. At this point, Scott Walker and Jeb Bush are at the top of the heap, wise. I know you had the privilege of listening to Marco Rubio at Freedom Fest. You also got to hear Donald Trump as well at Freedom Fest. So, but once again, the Donald, and the other reason that Donald is not a serious candidate is really the voters are not going to take him seriously as a candidate. They're not going to take him seriously as a presidential type figure. But what people will take him serious about is actually getting those issues up front and center that a lot of the other folks are afraid to do so.
Well, yeah, and like I said, and I've said this time and again, I think Trump is serious in his mind, and I think he's serious to a point. I don't think he's actually going to ever see the stage. But you nailed it. The conversation that he is forcing people to have that nobody wanted to have. And I've even heard allegations that he was somehow involved in the Steinle murder. I mean, that's how deep some people are going with this. But it is, like you said, it's a conversation that this country has avoided for a long time. And what it does is it gets other candidates on record. So when it comes time to flip-flop down the line, and when it comes time to come out with their official statement, they can say it one way or another. Now, you may not like how he says it, and this is one of the things that I argue with people about. He may not like, or you may not like the type of message that he delivers or how he delivers it. But the message is good. We need to deal with illegal immigration. Yeah, he might use some harsh tones, and I think I said this the other morning on my show. I've been accused of that on the West Coast, right? I've come out here and people have commented on how I talk differently and I'm sometimes too abrupt and too direct, blah, 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 blah. So, yes, some of it's in the delivery, and some of it is that Donald intentionally says things to get people ramped up and aggravated. But you have to take into consideration, like you said, the financial loss that he is taking business-wise. He is taking a huge hit business-wise, and for some people they may think it's only a drop in the bucket for him, et cetera, but he's a man who's built his life around capitalism and because of capitalism, and for him to risk any of that for a run for president, no matter how serious or not he is considered, and then to bring this conversation, I think it tells you, even if 40% of this is narcissism and to try to get his face in front of a camera easily, I think the other 60% of it is true and coming from his heart.
And here's the other flip side of this. It is forcing the other GOP candidates to actually come out and take a stand one way or another. Okay? Now, obviously, Jeb Bush, some of the other candidates, they tried to distance themselves from Trump's remarks, but what it has done, it has started up the serious discussions dealing with economic issues, dealing with immigration issues, dealing with racial issues. You're seeing, and these are just not side discussions. These are actually very serious discussions about policies and ideas that need to be put out there to help deal with some of these situations. And that is one thing that Trump has been very effective at, is stimulating, stirring the pot, stimulating everybody, getting them out there, forcing them to actually have to come up with an idea. How, stop and think about Hillary Clinton right now. She gave this big, big economic speech and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Basically, it was all about socialism and wealth redistribution. Unions, the usual talking points that you hear from the progressive left. But
Uber is bad, unions are good.
Exactly. Now let's compare that. On the same day that she gave that speech was also the exact same day that Scott Walker announced his candidacy for the presidency. Now, if you compare the speech that Scott Walker gave versus Hillary Clinton, by the way, there was one unique, I'll ask everybody out there, there was something missing on the stage when Scott Walker gave his presidential announcement. Does everybody know what that was?
Teleprompter?
There were no teleprompters at all
Yes.
on stage, much in the same mode of what Ted Cruz does. But the difference between the difference that you got, and I'm going to compare Hillary versus Scott Walker, but the difference that you got was here was Scott Walker. Hillary Clinton is seen as an elitist. She's tried to distance herself from the actual constituents. Everybody that gets to talk with her are all handpicked. She very seldom does spur-of-the-moment type stuff. The press is screened, roped off, hog-tied, put in closets, not allowed to go to the bathroom, whatever you want to, at all of these events. And then you have, on the very same day, here you have Scott Walker. Scott Walker's been criticized because he doesn't have a college degree. Does that matter to me? I don't give a damn if he has a college degree or not. But what he got up there and talked about was the American dream. He said, you know what? He talked about how his grandfather worked and how hard he worked, about how hard his parents, worked to achieve their American, dream, how hard he had to work, to be the success he has today, to be the governor of Wisconsin, to be a man that is being able to run for presidency. This was a man that was up there with a shirt, with his sleeves rolled up, talking from the heart, to the people in his hometown where he grew up, where everything started from him, brought his sons on stage. I'm running for president for the future of our children, and for the American people. Basically, he was saying, you know what? You see the likes of Hillary Clinton saying, you know what? Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, all these folks claim to represent the middle class. What Scott Walker was talking about, Scott Walker came up and said, ladies and gentlemen, I am the middle class. I actually represent you. I feel you. I know what you're going through. I know what your successes are. I know what your struggles are. I know what your kids are going through in schools. My kids are going through the same struggles. So I'm here talking to you. I am actually one of you. And then that completely stole the thunder away from Hillary once again, which I was happy to see. And hopefully, with the likes of Donald Trump bringing all these issues to the forefront, that's even going to, I think in the long run, I think it's actually going to strengthen the Republican field. It's going to strengthen the eventual nominee for president, the eventual nominee for vice president. And I just don't see, even if Hillary's the nominee, our friends on the progressive left, they just don't have anything that they can throw up against that.
Yeah, no, are you kidding me? They have nothing, and that's the thing is, Sanders is an establishment, a full-time life politician. He's got money. You talk about O'Malley. O'Malley's the same thing, right? He's got money. He's been in government for years and then paid millions of dollars in speaking and all this other stuff that he did after the fact. You look at Hillary, we all know what Hillary is. She hasn't driven a car since, 1981, 1982? She has no idea what the single mother or mother and father of two kids who have to work full-time jobs go through every single day to put food on the table. You look at Scott Walker, he knows damn well how to do it. You look at Ted Cruz, he's another one. He came from pretty much middle class as well. There was no silver spoon there. Marco Rubio, the ultimate American dream story from his parents, right? I mean, they immigrated here from Cuba. Their son was born here, is now a senator running to be president. That is the ultimate rag for riches story. So you look at the Republicans, you look at the conservatives, you start to see people who understand and connect to middle class and connect with struggle and connect with working every day. You look at the left, and as much as they like to point fingers, if you will, at the uber extremist rich white, they're the ones. They're the ones who are the absolute worst, and they're going after unions, which strangle small business. They're not going after unions. Hillary's supporting them, like you said. They're constantly trying to increase government to take more of a role in your every day-to-day life to control it. It's the opposite of what most conservatives want to do. We can have the arguments over which one, but it's a ridiculously far difference between the two parties. And, for the parties of pointing fingers being the Democrats, they are the ones that have the least amount of proverbial ammunition going into this race. They're the ones who are the white elite rich people.
Sean, I'm going to bring this up real quick because, and I know that people that have listened to me on Edge to Liberty and other shows have heard me say this before, but this presidential election is probably the most important presidential election, not only in my lifetime but the history of this country, and here's why. On the Republican side, you hear the Republican candidates. You're getting a theme from all candidates. Whether it's Jeb Bush, we all have issues. Let's face it, we all have. I don't want Jeb Bush to be the nominee. He's not my guy. But he's
is he anyone's guy?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But bottom line, through the field, through the serious candidates, the one underlying theme that you see developing through this is the American dream. You can be a success. Anybody can be a success in this country. You don't need a handout. A hand up is a completely different thing, which I am more than happy to do. A hand up to help somebody, more than happy to do. But so you see that reoccurring theme. You can be anything you want to be. You can be successful if you work hard. You earn it. You can live the American dream. And then on the Democrat side, which I'm not even saying, because the Democrat Party now is really turned into the progressive party, a socialist party almost, if you want to put it that way. You have, Barack Obama is often said to be a student of Saul Alinsky. Okay, which we all know that to be true. He is certainly a student of Saul Alinsky. Hillary Clinton is a disciple of Saul Alinsky. You're talking about Hillary Clinton actually worked side by side with Saul Alinsky. She is a disciple. There's a big difference between being a student of and being a disciple of Saul Alinsky.
Tremendous.
That makes Hillary Clinton a very dangerous person to become president of the United States. And then you couple that with the fact that there's no question who the vice presidential nominee is going to be on the Democratic side, and that's going to be Julian Castro, former mayor of San Antonio, the current HUD secretary, who, by the way, is overseeing Barack Obama's grand plan of urbanizing all of America, all of this utopian nonsense that we have seen destroy the likes of Detroit, Baltimore, destroying our nation's capital. Julian Castro is the architect of this grand plan for the urbanization of all America, and he will be the vice presidential nominee, and he and his brother are very, very dangerous men in this country. I would say at this point in time, these two Castro brothers are more of a danger to our country than the Castro brothers that are running Cuba. Their mother was one of the founding members of one of the most militant groups in our country today, and that is La Raza. So that's all you need to know about these guys. So when you look at the very dangerous candidates, the very leftist, progressive, socialist, almost Marxist candidates, direct disciples of Saul Alinsky that we have running for president on the left, versus the candidates that are aspiring on the right, that are talking about the American dream, keeping American great, that believe in American exceptionalism, that believe in the Constitution. It's a no-brainer. But the problem is, Sean, is people like you and I, through our radio shows, through our websites, all of our folks that are in the chat room. A lot of them are show hosts of their own. Mary Brockman, who's very active, going to all the shows and very active on social media and such. It's up to us, to help these candidates, get that message out there, because Sean, you and I have young children, and I would very much like for the country that I grew up in to be there for my children.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody today that I met at Freedom Fest, and we were catching up after the fact, and they were asking about the show on the network, and they said, "Why do you do it?" And I said, "That's exactly what I said. I said I have a 5-year-old son, and every single day that I'm on social media, every single day I'm on Edge of Liberty and Sackheads and SHR Media and all those things is because we need to have a future there for it, and they need to recognize it as America and not the slanted and destroyed form of America that's trying to be pushed down our throats as the way we have to be, this utopian society where everything's fine and everybody gets along and blah, 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 blah. It's all bull. It's all a disaster waiting to happen. And listen, when it all comes crumbled down, when everything comes crumbling down, the only people left who will be in charge in a position to do anything will be the ones that have all the power, because they won't feel the crumble. In the streets, the neighborhoods, even in the rural districts, they will feel the crumble when that final straw hits the camel's back and it breaks. They will be the ones to deal with it, but the ones in the ivory tower with the military guard and the government protection and the special operator protection, all that stuff, they're not going to reach it. They're just going to sit there and they're going to rebuild it in the likeness that they deem fit, Constitution or not. And that is something that I absolutely sweat and worry about.
And we come back to Donald Trump, and we certainly see how the progressives are reacting now as they are being challenged on this, with Donald Trump out there telling the truth about what is actually happening in America today, what is actually happening with the crime involving illegal aliens coming across our border, what is happening in America in our inner cities with black on black crime, what has happened with in our communities with the absolute disastrous policies that started with the LBJ administration that has led to the let's face it, it has led to the total destruction of the family unit in our inner cities, particularly with our African American community. And so when you start talking about the truth, you and I are used to being attacked in this way when we're talking about
most of mine comes from you.
Exactly. but when you have somebody high profile such as Donald Trump out there talking about the truth, or heaven forbid you have a high profile White House press corps reporter by the name of Major Garrett do some serious questioning of the President of the United States, you quickly see their hatred come to the forefront. You see how defensive you get. What's funny is when you actually present facts, figures, actual ideas and solutions to these folks, they have no answer. They have no solutions of their own. It comes back to what I was talking about earlier when I was ranting at the beginning of the show. Everything about progressivism is a academic theory. Global warming, their economics, their foreign policy beliefs, they're all theories, and when they're put into real world situations, they ultimately fail. And that is why you've seen the total destruction of the family unit in our African American communities, the total destruction of once great cities that were bastions of capitalism, such as Detroit. When you put these progressive utopian ideas in effect in these communities, you see the total destruction of the communities all the way down to the family.
Well, and not only just down to the family, but it goes down to beyond the family, if that's even possible. It goes down on interpersonal relationships outside of the family. And just how we treat one another in general. It really goes down to basic human decency being destroyed and remanufactured into something that it's not. And by the way, I don't know what movie it's from, so if somebody wants to watch the link and figure it out, Jersey Joe, Political Reva, just linked a video clip from a movie. I don't know what movie it is. It's Jeff Daniels, and he's addressing a college, and he essentially goes on a rant, and we're actually going to take a quick break. So I'll give you about the 3 minutes you'll need to watch that clip and then get back. If anyone can identify it, let me know. And we're going to have more right here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Back in a few.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf of a stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we got to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Second half of the show is always better than the first. Tonight is no exception. And the man Butcher joins me. Dan. I'm still suffering from the first half of it. But by the way, Sacco, you are not allowed to go back and listen to the first 20 minutes of the show. There may be some idle threats, and I may have cursed your name a few times. I'm just saying, if you go back and listen to it, that was not normal me. That was aggravated me, and we all know there's a giant difference. Going into the break, we were talking about the fabric of our country and really how important these elections that are coming up in 2016 are. Dan, I like to think that we're at a tipping point in this nation. And which is why I call my daytime show The Edge of Liberty. You were there when I was first developing the name, and part of the reason I called it what I did is because I feel like we're always on the edge one way or the other. We're going to tip back into liberty if the right people step up, or we're going to fall over the edge into tyranny, and to get back up is going to be a fight. I feel that we're constantly on this edge, and I feel now more than ever that line is getting extremely thin. That tightrope Lady Liberty walking is very, very tiny. If the Republicans gaff 2016, and listen, I don't think we're going to have Congress in 2016. I think the people that are in Congress right now are blowing it for 2016. So if we don't win the presidency by some strange chance, if the conservatives can't take the executive and we lose Congress, how bad, in your opinion, do you think it'll get?
It could get very bad, and I'll look at this going back through the history of progressivism in our country. And progressivism goes back 100, 150 years, but we'll really pick it up from people don't realize that progressivism has been something that has been put forth by not only Democrats but also Republicans or people that were once Republicans. Even going back to Theodore Roosevelt, who was a very strong progressive. But what has always happened in the history of our country is whenever progressivism has reared its ugly head, the American people have always stood up and said, no, enough is enough. Well, we saw progressivism raising its ugly head, rearing it up, and then the voters in 2014 told the Republicans, you know what, we're going to give you more control of the House, we're going to give you back control of the United States Senate because we want you to do something about progressivism in our country. Because most Americans, despite what you will hear in the liberal media, do still identify as conservative. But the Republicans have backed away from that. And they have really hurt themselves in the eyes of the American people because the American people put them in charge to combat President Obama's aggressive agenda and to stop it, not to help it along, not to enhance it. And what has happened now is, especially heading into 2016, and why this election is so important is because more than any time in our history, the progressives really feel emboldened, especially with the recent Supreme Court decisions dealing with gay marriage, dealing with Obamacare, etc. How often are you hearing progressives calling the gay rights movement the new civil rights movement of our era? That is absolutely making Martin Luther King Jr. roll over in his grave, folks. To make such ludicrous claims as that. It's absolutely asinine to make that comparison. But because of the gay marriage issue, they are more emboldened to not only, to take on floral shops, to take on marriage chapels, to take on bakeries, to make you bake a cake for a wedding, for a gay wedding. It spills over into freedom of speech, freedom of religion. You're now starting to see gay rights activists, challenge the very religious aspect of marriage itself. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I make the argument that traditional marriage is at the very foundation of our country, at the very foundation of our society, everything that we believe in, and we have to protect the sanctity of traditional marriage, but we also have to protect religious freedom. We recently saw that the sisters lost their court case against the Obama administration. Now we're forcing nuns to have to provide contraceptive care to their employees. That is how the stupidity, the lack of common sense that is taking hold of our country. And with that, the progressives have become more emboldened. They're really feeling very strong, and that is very dangerous for our country. And if we allow, and once again, I go back, if we allow a direct disciple of Saul Alinsky to get into the White House, such as Hillary Clinton, folks, you will, I'll make this prediction right now. You will actually see the Constitution in our lifetime. You will actually see something that we never thought could happen in the history of our country. But you will actually see the Constitution of our country rewritten.
Yeah. No, it will be so far up the river, it won't matter what kind of paddle we have.
Right.
And the other thing, too, and what's kind of forgotten all this, and I like to point out, the whole point of gay marriage, the fight that they were having is for the equality aspect of it. A lot of marriage licenses are now being changed, and because they wanted husband and husband put on it or wife and wife, and a lot of marriage licenses are now being changed to spouse and spouse. So the one thing they wanted The one thing they wanted is that their relationship be recognized by the state and the federal as a marriage is now being put into a generic term for everybody. And the scary part is this is what many of us were afraid it was going to happen. It turns everything into a generic term. And you know, I say it, and I know people get mad when I talk about gay marriage, and I say this, I don't care what people do in their own homes. I don't say anyone cannot love another person. That's not for me to decide and or judge. What I'm saying is nobody else should be forced into a position of acceptance, and nobody else should be forced outside, or for churches, outside to change their way of life and their beliefs. You know, as long as their beliefs are not openly hurting physically somebody, hurting somebody's feelings is not necessarily a crime. And that's the thing that's driving me crazy. And now you saw one of the lawsuits, I think it was for a cake, the woman was saying that she had heart issues because they denied making her a cake and all this other stuff. It's ridiculous. It's a lie. You're just trying to ruin somebody else in the name of your cause. And that's more damaging than somebody saying, in my opinion, I'm sorry, due to my religious beliefs, I can't bake that cake. There's a huge difference in that. It's the difference of malice. When you're using malice to justify and move forward, and again, I've said this before, if churches want to recognize gay marriage and before gay marriages, I don't care. That's not for me because they have the freedom of that religion just as I have the freedom to do what I want to do in my religion. But at the end of the day, malice is the key here. When you're doing something with malice aforethought, you are doing it with deliberate intention. Oftentimes to harm is usually what follows, but not always. But you're doing it with a plan. You're doing it for a purpose. Saying, no, I don't believe I can bake that cake because of my religion is not malice. It would be malice if you lied about it because you didn't want to. That's a little bit different. But if you are a strict Catholic and you don't recognize it, well, hey, that's that person's right. But now with the decisions we're seeing and with the Little Sisters and some other ones, we're seeing the government come in and strip away that First Amendment right, push down one group's freedoms to lift another one's. And that's not true lifting. That's pushing one group down to meet the other one, and there's a gigantic difference. Lifting is when you bring them up equal. Well, it's not equal when there's malice involved. They don't deserve that equality. And there are some out there who will tell you they think they deserve more rights. And again, I really don't judge anybody for their relationship. I don't. I don't believe in it because I believe people are people. But when you're using it as a position to do harm to somebody else, when you're militant about it, that's where it's scary. I equate it in the sense to, I will equate it to the race issues going on in the 60s, but it's the other side. They're the ones being the bullies right now.
Right. And Sean, you and I both know, homosexual people that are in our lives. I have several gay friends. But I don't approve of their lifestyle. It's not my cup of tea, just like my lifestyle is not their cup of tea. But the biggest thing that they want to do is they just want to live their lives. They want absolutely nothing to do with the militant, gay, progressive activist. They want absolutely nothing to do with it. And now what we're seeing with this, you talk about the nonsense that is developing from this. You actually have 21 members of Congress, Democratic senators and House members that have introduced legislation for the federal government to no longer recognize the terms husband and wife. That's how ridiculous this is. You're starting to see this stuff. You're starting to see lawsuits filed. We've had a lawsuit. One of the big arguments that we had against recognizing gay marriage was the other avenues that this would open up. And one of the big arguments is that it would open up the legalization of polygamy. And so we've seen a Utah man that has already filed a lawsuit to have polygamy recognized, and he now has a precedent to do so. This could also lead to the legalization of pedophilia. Which radical Islamists have often taken child brides, and so you could actually see a lawsuit filed here by a pedophile, saying, you know what, I have a legal right to marry this 9-year-old child. It's my religion.
Yes.
It's my belief. You're persecuting against my freedom of religion with this, and so you're seeing that type of nonsense, that type of criminal activity that could actually be legalized because of this.
And it's absolutely frightening. And you brought it up earlier, and I do want to point out, too, because I'm sure anyone who's listening to the show is already calling me a homophobe or anything else that they want to. I do actually feel horrible for the gay men and women in this world who just want to lead their life in privacy.
Right.
The ones who didn't want to get dragged. And I truly mean that. And I know some either via Twitter, and I actually met a couple at Freedom Fest, and they're all over the place who are quote unquote being lumped into this group that they don't want any part of. They want their life to be private, and meanwhile they're getting dragged out. And like one of them said to me, "I'm now forced to have a conversation with people I'm not comfortable having. I don't talk about my relationship with people, and now people feel that it's okay to come out and ask me about it." And I don't want them to. I just want them to, treat me as me. Don't worry about why I'm in a relationship and for what. And that's the thing, I think they're being victimized as well by, like you said, the militant gay and lesbian community, because they're being forced into something they don't want any part of. It's horrific. All this has done is absolutely made this more divisive in this country. We've just found another reason to separate ourselves with fellow Americans versus trying to find a reason to unite.
Right. And, Sean, and I'll even go further with this. We had the story break yesterday about the undercover video that was released of the Planned Parenthood executive. This just isn't any executive. This is the lady that directly sees the entire abortion operation of Planned Parenthood, caught on tape, caught on video, talking about Planned Parenthood. Basically what they're doing is they are selling the body parts of babies they have killed. And now Planned Parenthood comes back and says, well, you know what? We're doing this. We're actually donating all of these organs and parts for research and what have you. And we only ask that our cost be recouped. Well, in a lot of cases, their cost is the amount of money that they recoup is more than what their actual cost was. And in America, we call that a profit. So we have Planned Parenthood profiteering from the selling of the body parts of babies that they have killed. And so obviously those of us in conservative media, those of us that are pro-life, we immediately are outraged by this. And of course you've seen Bobby Jindal and Greg Abbott have launched investigations into Planned Parenthood. We're going to see more of that. Congressional Republicans are calling for an investigation of Planned Parenthood, who, by the way, received over $550 million worth of taxpayer money to, you're talking about an organization, for these people that make the argument that Planned Parenthood is purely for women's health, that's a bunch of BS, ladies and gentlemen. Planned Parenthood is in the abortion business. They provide 40% of the abortions in this country today with taxpayer money. And it's even enhanced even more with Obamacare. But you see how...
And it started with eugenics.
Yeah, and you see how awesome the thing. We are appalled by this. We are this. But yet, our friends, progressives, they look at this and say, oh, you know what? You know what? That's that's not even a baby. That's not even a life. This was dealing with women's health, and there's just a clump of cells that they were doing, that they were donating. It's no big deal. No big deal at all. Planned Parenthood tried to play this off as medical research, and you see their reaction to this. It's the same type of reaction that we're seeing from the militant gay rights activists who are trying to force. Let's face it, they're trying to force a fundamental change in the religious beliefs of people with what they're trying to do now. And you've seen the same thing with abortion over the years, where the sanctity of the very sanctity of life is being downplayed by these folks.
Well, it's the sanctity of our way of life as well. And like I said, Margaret Sanger, when she first started Planned Parenthood, she was all about eugenics, and it was all about trying to essentially get rid of the black race and limit the black race. It's well documented. And now, if you look as to who is most affected population-wise by Planned Parenthood, I said Planet Hollywood earlier today too, Dan, when I was talking about this. I am still in Vegas, apparently, mentally. But it's still a majority of it is black children who are being aborted through this more than anybody else, and it's targeted in these communities. It's targeted in black low-income communities. That's where they have the highest concentration of Planned Parenthoods. And it's absolutely frightening to me to think that this goes unnoticed by a vast majority of Americans. They still view Planned Parenthood as this bastion of safety and, an alternative choice to being stuck with a child that you created for the rest of your life. It's frightening to me. And I'm not saying, when I talk about abortion, I understand that there are sometimes medical and criminal purposes. I really do understand that. I believe that it should be well documented, and I also believe that it should be done by a doctor in a professional environment. But what we see with abortion today, this Plan B, if you will, for pregnancy, and then you look at instances like Planned Parenthood selling off baby parts like they're car parts, like it's nothing. Oh, and I said this morning we were talking about our conversation. Oh, I didn't even know there was such a big market for hearts and this node and that node, and she's eating a salad like she's a monster, in my opinion. I equate her to the salesperson equivalent of Dr. Kermit Gosnell. And I really do that. And a lot of people could say, right. Oh, come on, that's extreme, and you should... No. She's talking about these aborted children like they're car parts, like they're nothing to her. Oh, it's so... it was amazing to hear that it was blah, 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 blah. No, it's frightening. It tells you that she is a seriously disturbed lady. And I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter last night, Dan. I don't know if you heard this earlier today, but who was telling he was trying to use Paul the Apostle's story in all of this and saying, well, she should find God, and then he kind of directed a little bit at me because I said, no, she should rot in hell. If she finds God, that's fine. That's between her and God. That's not for me. But she needs to go to prison because she is in violation of the law, in my opinion, and she's breaking it. And she needs to go to prison. If she finds God, great. But you know what? She has to answer on this planet before she goes to the beyond. We can't make excuses for this sort of behavior in our society. We need to stop.
Right, and people don't. And I want to really stress, and I know we're fixing out of time with the show, but this development. Planned Parenthood tried to play this off as, and as well as members of the Obama administration and high-ranking Democrats. They've come to the defense of Planned Parenthood, saying, hey, you know what? This was just an attack by a well-funded organization that has it in for Planned Parenthood, trying to discredit Planned Parenthood. This is similar to other things. But look at the long history of abuses and illegal activity that has been exposed that Planned Parenthood has done with taxpayer dollars. I think this one could possibly be the breaking point, because you're talking about, if depending on the extent of this and if they're selling dead baby parts across state lines and stuff, they are in direct they are in direct violation of federal law. You cannot do this. They are breaking the law, and this might finally be the one thing that the Republicans in Congress can use to cut off I'm tongue-tied, to cut off funding to Planned Parenthood. The only question remains is do they have the guts to do it? Do they have the guts to be Donald Trump and stand up to the progressive left? Do they have the guts to do it? And
no.
And Sean, I'm afraid that they don't. I really don't think they do.
I don't think they will, and I don't think they absolutely have the spine to do it. Because they're politicians and all they do is run for office the next day. They don't do what's right anymore, and that's the sad part. So I want to end the show. We have 2 minutes left. I want to end the show on a good note, Dan, and this is something you and I can both get behind one way or another. The American League won the Midsummer Classic last night and will retain home field advantage in the World Series this year. Now, which I really am happy. I'm an American League fan, right? And you're an American League fan too, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And so finally, we have one win this week, and that is the American League will have home field advantage. Finally, that's it. That's the only win we get this week in America, I think.
But you know what? We're going to take it and run with it.
Ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead.
And you know what?
Go ahead.
Sean is a big Boston Red Sox fan. I'm a big Texas Rangers fan. So
huge.
Huge. But I'm nowhere near the big Texas Ranger fan that my wife is, who actually yells at the television during ball games. My daughter, who's sitting here with me, is just dying right now.
Yeah. Which always brings me back to the saying I say to you all the time: never mess with Mrs. Butcher. Ever mess with Mrs. Butcher.
Exactly.
Don't even think about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Butcher, the editor-in-chief of Pundit Press and the permanent Friday host for the Edge of Liberty on 1360 AM WNJC in Philadelphia. Sir, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I greatly appreciate all your help.
Hey, Sean, it was a pleasure, my friend. To be called literally 20 minutes before showtime and say, hey, Dan, what are you doing tonight?
Welcome to my hell, Dan. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for the Sackheads Radio Show. Join me tomorrow afternoon at 12 on the East Coast, 9 on the West Coast for the Edge of Liberty. My guest will be senatorial candidate Alex Malusky. We will be discussing fair tax versus flat tax on the current tax system, as well as get his input on the Iranian deal. Join us next Wednesday right here at 11 on the East, 8 in the West for the Sackheads Radio Show. Stay tuned for all the great shows on the SHR Media Network. Talk to you soon.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.